All right, when it comes to functions, the next thing we're going to talk about is the rate of change over an interval. So the rate of change is the same thing as slope, and the slope is the ratio of the difference in y values and the difference in x values. Okay, so the change in the y values divided by the change in the x values. The rate at which the graph changes is the graph's rate of change. The slope is the calculation that measures this rate of change. So there's some things you need to know about slope. First of all, the bigger the number, the faster the graph is changing. So if you're comparing a slope of -7 to a slope of 2, the -7 is a faster change. The negative part talks about it decreasing, where the positive part of the 2 talks about it increasing, but -7 is a faster change than that positive 2. If the slope is positive, the graph is increasing. If the slope is negative, the graph is decreasing. If the slope stays the same at every point on the graph, then the graph has a constant rate of change. So, for example, all straight lines have a constant rate of change. All right, your slope formula is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So you've got to be given a point, an xy point. You have your first point, so x sub 1 and y sub 1. And you've got to be given another point, and we'll call that x sub 2 and y sub 2. So if this were the point 2, 3, and this were the point 4, 7, those would be the numbers that you would plug in the appropriate place. This is point number 1, so the x and y both have a little 1. And this is the second point, so the x and y both have a little 2. We're not using the little 1 or the little 2. It just helps identify what number we're going to plug in first. So the formula works for any 2 points. You just have to assign them to be point 1 or point 2. You will need to memorize the formula for slope. You need to know that this is the slope formula. You need to be able to use it at any point. There are going to be times you're going to have to pull points off the graph when you are given the x values. So what happens is you'll get a graph. And we're going to just draw this graph in here right now. We're going to get this graph right in here. Okay. So here's our graph, and then let's say you've got, it's just this line. From here, it goes like this, and then it goes like this, and then it goes like this, and it stops. So you've got some points here, okay? All right, and it asks you what is the rate of change over the interval -1 is less than x is less than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Okay, so this is what the problem looks like. It's asking you what is the rate of change over the interval from x is -1 to 5. All right, so first of all, that messes with us on many levels because, oh my gosh, what do intervals and slope formula have to do with each other? All this is asking for is if I were to start here and go up here to 5, what is your average rate of change from this point to this point? That's all it's looking for. What is my average rate of change from this point on the graph to that point on the graph? It doesn't care that it went up and then went flat for a little while. It just wants to know if I were just looking at when I went from here to here, what was my average rate of change? So what you need is 2 points. You need the point that's here at the -1. So that's going to be the point -1, 2. And then you'll need this point here at 5, which is at 5, 4. Okay? So knowing what my formula is, I'm going to let this be my first point. So this is going to be x sub 1 and y sub 1. And this is going to be x sub 2 and y sub 2. So we'll zoom in and focus on just the math portion of this now. So I've got my x sub 1 and my y sub 1 identified. So now I'm going to go to my formula, and I'm going to say that y sub 2, let's just write out my formula, minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So y sub 2 is 4 minus 2 divided by, and now x of 2 is 5, minus negative 1. Okay? So 4 minus 2 is just 2. Okay? 5 minus negative 1, minus a negative means plus, is 6. So I'm going to simplify 2/6 to 1/3, and that is my average rate of change. 1/3 is my average rate of change for the graph over the interval from -1 to 5.